I always give a minute in case I have to cut off the beginning part or does something wonky.
You know,
Anyway, welcome to Trading Group Live. Today, a new face and voice in the podcast, Todd Woitzel.
hey, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So, Todd, normally this is where I make the person introduce themselves. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to introduce you for
I'll
you?
introduce myself.
Okay.
Todd Woitzel, been shooting about 8 years now with my wife, Michelle. Um, Started on Steel Challenge, still do a lot of Steel Challenge and do most of the local USPSA matches. I'm going to call them hit factor matches now. So
Mm-hmm.
I will refute to refer to that style of shooting as hit factor during the rest
Uh-huh.
of. And I've gotten into doing match directing of our locals, and in the last 3 years for Steel Challenge, the last 2 years, and match director for the Cornhusker Classic Hit Factor match that's in early June. Been happy to do it. I really enjoy doing that part of the sport.
Yeah. So, all right, well, that's some noticeable stuff or notable stuff. Todd, you are how many time GM in Steel Challenge? Like a
Uh,
lot.
four
Five?
times,
Four
and all
times.
four of the rifles, and I'm master in two of the pistols.
So Todd's very lethal at Steel Challenge and working on your action pistol game still.
Yes, I am. I
So
shoot open. I probably my issues. I don't go fast enough. My primary issues. I don't practice enough. I know that that's my problem. You know that that's my problem.
uh-huh.
I am making a commitment in 2024 to be more deliberate about my practice in both sports that I shoot, and that's my goals for the year. That's about it. Is just get better.
Yeah. Anyway, it was Steel Challenge. Todd's very lethal. Um, so what else? You're local to my club. So Todd's a guy that I see pretty often. He's on the same board that I am for the gun club
Yep.
proper.
I'm
So we interact together quite a bit. I like Todd. Todd's easy to get along with, and well, I don't want to talk too much. Or tell me if I need to shut up. Todd's professional life, you are good at what management, managing people and resources, and you have a business background, so you're very qualified for an admin role. If I didn't misspeak on anything there.
No, I think you're right. I'm involved in logistics, supply chain. I'm a head of procurement for a technical company in Omaha. I've always been in the supply chain world, which frankly, management nowadays is just project management. So if you can manage a project, you can should be able to manage a match. You should be able to manage the refurb on your home. That's all it is.
Mhm. This is true. And so anyway, Todd and his wife have been around for a while, plugged in, friendly, like a lot of people like interacting with them. We had a bit of an incident, I suppose, at our club with a change of the guard without any real handoff. It was just more of an
About
implosion.
4 years ago, I'd say somewhere in there.
Yeah. So anyway, Todd was the guy. Well, a lot of people like, hey, they wanted me to run the club. I'm like, I don't have the bandwidth. I'm not qualified. Todd's the guy. And luckily, you were willing to sacrifice your time and do that. Anyway, I think we've teamed up on a lot of stuff, but it's been
Yes.
good over the years.
It has been. I enjoy the vast majority of the people at our club. Actually, I enjoy them all. So you don't have to necessarily like everybody you interact with, but
Mhm.
everybody at our club you can find commonality with and get through a match. I enjoy match directing, as you said before. I'm thankfully, I guess, I should change that word. I have now the president of Eastern Nebraska Gun
That's
Club.
true.
So I guess if I'm going to be on the board, I might as well be in charge. What the heck? But
Yeah.
it is exciting seeing our gun club as a whole grow as well, not just the practical shooting areas where we participate. A
Hmm.
lot of matches at the gun club. We have 2,300 members, and I think it's like you've seen since COVID waned off for most people in the last couple of years that you're seeing a lot of people coming back and shooting a lot. So it's nice to see.
Yeah. So anyway, at the gun club proper to back up, I was in charge of the money. I was like, hey, I need somebody to run the meetings. And so I kind of
I'll do that.
volunteered Todd for that. I kind of nominated him without really
Happy.
talking to him first.
Yes, it was a nice nomination. I appreciate
Yep. Yep. The joke's on you because now you got the
it. Yes, it
job.
is.
So what I want to talk about today, well, there's a bunch of stuff, but we're going to talk about kind of some of the drama, I guess, regarding USPSA, how like our club has still excelling the Cornhusker matches, kind of management stuff. So kind
Yeah.
of politics, match management, dealing with people, kind of all that stuff. So I guess the easiest place to start, like, what side of the fence are you on? What's your current views with the current revolt drama?
I
mudslinging
have
happening
been
with
watching
USPSA.
this generally from the sidelines for a number of years.
Hmm.
It in various aspects of what's going on. I've been seeing things that as I became more knowledgeable, that I wasn't happy with in certain parts of the sport, even before some of the more recent drama. What got me, and I think many other people, over the hump to get more engaged in doing what we can do to alter the current state was the removal of our duly elected area director, Scott Arnberg. He was given a 10-year prison sentence for doing 56 and a 55.
Hmm.
It is a terrible thing that was done for the sake of following a bylaw to the letter of the law, when several bylaws have been broken plainly over the
Hmm.
last few years. And that was my look and viewpoint on it. And I know several other people saw that as their real point of engagement, to saying, what at least what can I do? What can my club do to put action towards improving, hopefully fixing? That's all of our goal, is to fix it, right? Is to get it where it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
I hope that's the case. I think many people hope it's the case. And we have a demand. We want our area director reinstated, and we want a couple of the board members that are causing a lot of the harm to resign. If they do that, the hit factor match will be renamed a USPSA match, and we go on with our lives. I will say, go on with our lives. There's still improvements that need to be made, but I think that need to be changed. But I believe that the rebellion can become more skirmishy.
Hmm.
I'll say it that way. How's that sound?
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe it's an unfair summarization. Some people want to burn everything to the ground. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. Women, children, everybody gets destroyed. Everything gets burned. We'll start all over after we destroy all this stuff. Then there's kind of a different viewpoint where it could be saved. We need to, these are our, demands or the compromising points. If these things are met, then we want to reaffiliate, reinstate, continue,
Yeah,
pick things back up.
those are my demands. I think they're clear. I think there's a lot of people demands, but if you want to
Hmm.
put a poster that says what Todd's demands, that's what they are. I think at the same time, those of us that have positions of leadership within our gun club, which is different than just being match director of your practical shooting teams, or practical shooting groups, is a little different. You and I being on the board, we have to also make sure that we are good stewards of our gun club.
Hmm.
So we have two different stances in our club. Our hit factor shooting is taking a very drastic stance on what we were doing, and our steel challenge customers, frankly, being a board member, uh, really do not engage in that mindset.
Hmm.
But we have a fiduciary responsibility to our gun club as well, to make sure our customers, frankly, have what they want as much as possible, while at the same time taking action where we can. So our hit factor matches, that's what they are. We're going to run an all classifier for those people that want to continue classifications within USPSA in May. But our steel challenge matches are going forward as is. Our Cornhusker Classic steel challenge has been downgraded to a level 1. I'll talk about that later on if you want to talk about steel challenge.
Sure.
And we'll probably do a couple outlaw along the way, but it's a different sport, and the people that are involved in that tend to not be as much engaged in a lot of the drama that's going on
Mhm.
at the moment.
Well, I mean, we put out feelers just on our internal Facebook groups, and it was basically, what do you guys want?
Yeah,
Because again, if you run any business, you have to listen to what the customers want.
you
If you
do.
start telling your customers how they want their steak cooked and what they want for sides, like they're not going to go there anymore if they don't like that. So you
Yeah,
have to let people choose how they want their steak cooked or what they want.
and that's what we did, and we will continue to do that. I
Mhm.
am not a burn it all down. I am of fixing it. I hope it would resolve itself tomorrow. It
Mhm.
won't, but that's what we would all want.
And I mean, there's plenty of naysayers. I've seen some other people that people have tried to attack online where it's like, hey, you're still doing Steel Challenge, USPSA, proper matches. You're part of the problem. And my response to that is you can't wish so hardly to do damage to USPSA or to take their money away that you're willing to damage your own club or membership.
Yeah, that's my belief. We, I won't get into my personal feel. Well, you know what my personal feelings are. I would
Sure.
I would run an outlaw for all of them. It's just fine with me. But the vast majority of our competitors do not want that, and we won't. So we won't do it. That's just where we stand, and that's what it is. If in those cases where you think we're being hypocritical with Steel Challenge, don't donate your dollar on the match fee and don't shoot it. I'm sorry, but the vast majority will continue to do it, and we have to provide that venue from an Eastern Nebraska Gun Club point of view.
Mm-hmm. So how did you decide about the Cornhusker match? Whether we'll call it the action pistol match. It's
Well,
been
it was the name has changed several times. For 2 years ago, it was renamed. It used to be the Great Plains Sectional. For those that didn't know that,
Mhm.
during some drama within our own club, it was renamed the Cornhusker Classic. The Sioux Falls Practical Shooters took over the sectional match,
Mhm.
which is great because frankly, our region got another major match out of it, so it worked out really.
100%.
We branded both the Steel Challenge and the Hit Factor, the action shooting matches as the Cornhusker Classic, so we had common branding, and it went well. It was a good switch. The time of the year was the same. The previous match director had been doing it for a while, decided to take a break. I was happy to step in and glad that I was asked to do so. And last year I thought it went well.
Mm-hmm.
The USPSA match did. So this year it became very clear that, through the drama, that we were going to make it a hit factor match based on what we had talked about earlier. My belief on running the matches might be different than some. I don't believe in running a USPSA match and then just not paying. I frankly want to be better than the people that are doing this stuff.
Plus,
So,
that's not classy at all. I mean, it's like,
well, what's going to end up happening is if they meet your demands, you're going to pay the money back, right?
mhm.
I figure we're just going to save the money. So, reached out to Max Leograndis, originally took his PCSL rulebook,
Mhm.
dramatically changed it. It's on a link on the rule book's on a link on my profile on Instagram if you want to look at it. It's about 12 pages long. Again, heavily modified from PSL. Just to clarify, this is not a new PSL rule book, but we want to make sure that Max gets his due credit for doing all the work that he did with that sport.
Mhm.
Changed and clarified some of the rules that we thought needed to be clarified, removed all the 2 and 3 gun stuff, and basically then created new divisions that mirrored the current divisions that you're familiar with some subtle and not so subtle changes that we can talk about.
Mhm.
Totally renamed them. If you shoot one of these matches, they've been shot a few times. I know that Tim Dunduri has run one up in the Minneapolis area. We've done a local, and they went off without a hitch with no problems. You can run it and practice score, major, minor power scoring. Works great. You can, and some of the things we kept from Max's rulebook, video evidence is allowed.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that the angle where you have somebody recording is going to abscond you from whatever penalty you think you should or shouldn't have had. But
Right.
we tweak the popper calibration rule a little bit to make it simpler, and added one rule that I think a lot of people will appreciate. If you think about it, like IPSC, you can clarify and make it a requirement, I'm sorry, in the written stage briefing to stay within inside the shooting area, which frankly,
Which,
over the years would fix a lot of stages that people had the intent behind that got wrecked. So
yes.
clarify that, which uses a hell of a lot less walls and can make the stages a little more interesting if you know that you can use that as a requirement.
Otherwise, sometimes you have to add so many walls. Like, well, somebody's going to do this, so you end up dragging out 10 wall sections to build this barrier to stop somebody from doing something. And yeah, if you just said stay inside the fault lines, anything
So it's an
outside is
option for you.
lava. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to do that, or if you're building a stage and you think, crap, this doesn't work, if it works staying in the shooting area, put that in the written stage briefing and away you go.
Well, I already know the answer, but I got to ask you this question anyway. Why did you start with Max's rule book? Why not just start with, USPSA-ish rule book and then do some rewording and say it's your own?
Yeah,
Because I've
one
seen
reason is
conversation about that online.
yeah, well, the USPSA rule book is what, 90 pages, whatever it is.
Mhm.
I can't believe that you need to have a rule for everything that happens under the sun, which is what it has. Some of them are good and some of them are hard to deal with. Max did a great job of creating a simplified rule book for the sport that he designed, PCSL, which is, time plus or hit factor or hit fact points per second. He has both options. And I liked the simplicity of his rule set. I thought there's some things that needed stronger language, so I put them in there. Again, it's heavily modified. So again, these aren't PCSL rules, but you could tell he put a lot of thought into trying to make a simpler rule set that the vast majority of people could understand. The caveat to it is there might be things in the rule that aren't necessarily covered, but frankly, there's a line in the rule book that says all other exceptions will be handled with due consideration and reasonableness by the range master. So there's your out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not perfection, but I think it's a rule set that you can use.
And I'm sure it'll be a work in progress because there might be a revision next year if things are still out of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, people can take it, do what they want with it. In my opinion, there's no intellectual property of mine in any way. A lot of people were involved in input originally, which did it over the Christmas break when all the stuff went down.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Andy Erickson is going to use the same rule book at the Great Plains, not section.
Championship? Is it Great Plains Championship?
Great Plains Hit Factor Championship.
There you go.
That's what it's called. The Cornhusker was going to be the Galactic Championship because we thought that was better than everybody. And then it was the points divided by time championship when we.
Well, let's talk about what you're alluding to. USPSA tried to trademark hit factor. This is kind of interesting because, I talked to a lot of people. The way it sounds, well, I know some members of the board tried to trademark hit factor without letting the entire board know. So it was a big decision that was made without even all the board members being aware. And anyway, we had talk internally about that. What are your thoughts on how that looks like they've abandoned ship since then?
Well, they were never going to win it anyway. I don't know how you trademark a word like that. You could trademark a brand. It would make more sense. You'd have more success at doing it. You could have easily changed the name of the association to the Hit Factor Practical Shooting Association, I guess, and come up with the logo. And that's if you wanted to do, you could. They were never going to win that. I thought was foolish. But those of us that are naming matches, we would have called it the Comstock Championship. Wasn't that who originally came up with the scoring method way back when in the 70s or whatever it was?
That could be.
We could have named it whatever we wanted to.
True.
Trademark all you want. We'll find words around it.
Hey, while we're talking about trademarking and getting letters in the mail, can I put you on the spot and have you talk about a cease and desist letter you received? A little bit off topic, but it's comical.
I didn't receive it.
Well, sorry, your lovely wife did.
My wife, Michelle Woitzel, who some of you might know, she's the face behind MW Activewear. A lot of you have probably gotten shirts from her at matches, especially if you've been an RO. About a year ago, she received a cease and desist because I think it mainly came out because a lot of people were looking for alternatives on where to get jerseys for matches for their ROs. They were struggling with an existing vendor being long on lead times and very expensive. Said that she was violating USPSA trademarks, etc. So I read the online policy regarding it and found one post on her Instagram that maybe could have done that. So we deleted it, responded back with our take on the policy. I read contracts for a living, so I'm fairly good at understanding their nomenclature, and never heard back. I wrote a long-winded response attacking every point that came from the managing director, and never heard back to said that I was in compliance or not. So I assumed I was.
Well, people are going to want to know. So this, you said managing director, this came from Donna Webb. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you emailed Donna back or corresponded to Donna directly?
I can't remember if I believe there was somebody else on the email. I think there was an attorney on it.
Probably Attorney Jim.
I don't know if it was him or not. I believe it might have been, but I can't recall.
People are laughing right now listening to this. I can already hear the laughter. Anyway,
she's in full compliance. If you need some jerseys, look her up.
There you go. Well, let's be real. Michelle does Area 3, Cornhusker, I think the Iowa section, boys, Great Plains.
She does a lot of IDPA, Area 5 Steel Challenge, Indiana Steel Challenge. She has a a new customer who might be a board member right now that's looking for jerseys for a big match in the Southeast, and more to come. So she's
You've
lost
probably
a
seen,
couple.
yeah,
She's
sorry,
lost
go
a couple clients over this from some people that don't, see her way or some of our way, I guess, if you want to take a side. But I think what you've seen is her doing her due diligence of saying that you have to get permission to use logos, etc., depending on the policy. A lot of people just say, fine, take the logo off, I don't care.
ahead.
So hasn't hurt her a bit.
Makes sense.
Doing well.
Dude, good. Let's talk about the Cornhusker matches. We'll switch gear back, although I love the
Yeah.
crazy talk. I want to talk a bit about when you took over, or a bit of the changing of the guard. There's been a drastic change for the crew involved, the setup procedures, the amount of people helping. There's been like a lot of changes. How did
Yeah.
you like assess what was happening, and why did you choose to make a difference?
Well, I'd say the changes are more subtle than what you're saying, or maybe you view them differently. I mean, our club has a long history of people and match directors and other people willing to assist. But like a lot of clubs, there's a lot of heavy lifting by a few as well that do more than their fair share. And we know who they are, and they know who they are. The big change that we actually, I'll step back. I'll take the big change. What we kept the same is making sure that we look to have quality staff. I think the only thing I did, and I'm not saying it wasn't done this before, but what I've tried to do with matches that I've done this is not just picking ROs, but picking ROs that work good as a team on a stage, right? Todd and Joel might be decent ROs, but they're not the best to be on the same stage together. Maybe Todd and somebody else make a better pair, depending on the
Hmm.
stage setup. Or is it fast shooting? Is it slow shooting? Do you think there's going to be a lot of foot faults for possible things like that where you need good eyes? So you kind of have to think about the pairings or the teams that you're putting at a stage. That's what I try to do. I'm not saying it wasn't done before, but that's what I
Hmm.
try to do. Setup, setup has traditionally been done by very few people. They would work their rear ends off, take about 4 days off of work, and frankly, too few people were involved in doing it.
Hmm.
So myself, you, and others really pushed to get more people out there to help last year, and we probably completed it a day faster than it was probably from a working hour perspective, which was great. And I think there's still a lot of opportunity. My belief is that when you put on a major match and you're hosting it at your club, there should be and is a sense of pride that your club wants to put on a good match.
Hmm.
You want the lawn mowed, you want the signage right, you want the walls straight, you want everything to go well. Your goal is that mishaps are going to happen as long as the competitors don't notice it, then it's successful. Last year we had an RO error that was caught after the match, and it was unfortunate, and you've got to try to learn from it,
Hmm.
and it doesn't happen again. So I think it's just getting more people from the population of your club involved with that pride to put on the match is what really makes it good.
I agree.
That's
I do
what I
the
try.
same. I do the same thing about asking for stages. Like, hey, it's your club. It's your club, or your, major match also. Would you please send me one stage?
Yep, that's all we want you to do, and you know how it works. They don't always go on the ground the same way. Like
Sure.
yours last year, yours was Bay 2, and it didn't look anything like the like the drawing, but it was a
Right.
great stage.
Oh, it turned out okay.
I know Kyle McNabb did one. I believe it was his, maybe on the 100-yard range. I can't
Uh-huh.
remember. And he said he didn't remember doing it because it just didn't look the same way. You
Yeah.
had some walls and move stuff around, but it was a good stage. So I appreciate everybody that turns them in.
Yeah. I mean,
I will
that's.
say this:
I'm sorry.
Tanfo Timmy's stages look pretty close to his drawings, but of course he uses the Lego set, so they end up working pretty good.
True. It is important to say the magic really is in the setup. So if you design a stage, like for regardless if it's for us or somebody else, it doesn't have to be perfect with every single like 180 or pass through figured out. You can figure that stuff out on the ground. So just trying to help out and come up with a theme or a design is the majority of the work. You can massage things a bit when you're setting it down on the ground.
Yeah,
So
there's a couple things too that we do that I personally think is the best way to do it. It's always a half dozen one six of another, or whatever the phrase is, six of one, half dozen of the other, is prize table. Some people like order of finish.
Mm-hmm.
We do a random draw,
Mm-hmm.
and the vast majority of people win something. My belief is that everybody's match fee is worth the same. Most people probably have the gear they want. If you snag a red dot and you can use it, great. If not, sell it to your buddy or something like that. But our sponsors come through very well, but it's a hard thing to do. There's so many ways to do the prize table.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way we've chosen to do it. We do it for the Steel Challenge too. I think one big positive too is Michelle taking pictures. People like that. I think
People love that.
do. You get an action shot. She generally picks a spot where she thinks she can get some good photos, and I think it works out really well. I think it's a nice positive that
Mm-hmm.
that she don't. It's a lot of work for her, but she does a great job.
It is. Yeah. No, it's well, like last year there's a specific spot on Bay 5 where there was a Cornhusker Classic, like a banner. It was built into the stage, part
Yep,
of the wall section. And
it,
so, and it
it
was
was a great
people.
spot to stand. She got a nice, safe, full side view of the shooters and some good running shots of people coming into that position. It was a great spot. So she shoots the matches. She knows
Mhm.
what, especially with her eye for photography, she knows a good place to stand. And I think she got everybody. Clifford Scott, if you're listening, I sent you the link. She did get a picture of you. I
He will not
sent you the
listen to this, I
link.
don't
There's
think.
about 8 or 9 of them. Clifford Scott shoots open out of Iowa.
There you go. That's funny. It's also, I should have said before, Michelle is what, as many GM cards as you are in Steel
Yep,
Challenge?
she has 4. Yep, she is.
She's pretty lethal at Steel
I
Challenge
think
also.
Michelle says if you're a female and you're old enough to legally have a cocktail, she can probably beat you. It's hard to beat those teenagers.
These kids are fast.
Yes, they are. You RO'd them last year. They can shoot.
I did. No, and that, well, talking about your RO pairing, that was good because I volunteered to be staff. It'd been before that maybe 3 years since I'd shot all the Steel Challenge stages. I
Yeah.
mean, I understand the rule, but like the order and stuff, I don't know. So it was easy. You paired me up with somebody that was easy to work with. You set me on a bay that was going to be easy for me to like see the hits. You had me on pendulum, which was like, yep, I can see the hits, no big deal, and that worked out fine.
Yeah, we're great. We needed an RO. You were a good RO. It worked out well. Hell, we even got Lane to shoot it.
Yeah,
Lane borrowed my 929 revolver and told
yeah.
me it. And then he shot it in a USPSA match, and after that, he told me it sucked because the cylinder wouldn't turn. I still blame his ammo. Sorry, Lane. You can send me a note.
It's terrible. Well, what else do we want to talk about? We should talk about Steel Challenge a little bit if you want
Yep.
to, or anything else with USPSA you want to talk about.
I don't. I mean, the matches for June 8th and 9th, the Cornhusker Classic
Mhm.
Hit Factor Championship, 2 weeks before the Nationals. For those of you that feel like attending that and giving them $400, more power to you. We moved it up last year 2 weeks. I think that actually probably was, to go back to your question on change, what we did. We moved it up 2 weeks because it typically had coincided
That's
very close
true.
to the College World Series. So people had a hard time getting hotels, and if they
And
did,
it
they were
was
expensive.
expensive.
Yeah, so that was a good move. I think people really appreciated it. It's
Mhm.
2 weeks earlier into the summer, so maybe it's a hair cooler. Who knows? Maybe 82 versus 84 degrees, if that matters much, or 184 degrees, whatever it is. But so that move was done last year, primarily to get away from the College World Series. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about Steel Challenge a little bit. The people listening
Yeah.
to this maybe don't shoot that much of it. Maybe they do.
Well, you've been pretty critical of some Steel Challenge stuff, especially what the Nationals.
They call it the World Shoot. It's really the Steel Challenge Nationals, just like anything else, but whatever, call it whatever you want. They The scheduling is bad, just like a lot of the USPSA run national matches. And I think everybody would agree with this, that national matches, your sports ultimate championship and measure of how people are doing, should be at the end of the shooting season.
Mhm.
Carry optics is head and heels the largest division in the USPSA, and the championship is in June. It makes no sense to me. It should be September, October, November, or whatever it is. Steel Challenge is no different. They moved it back a month. It had been in April the last 2 years, and then in a COVID year they had it in September. But it's been recently, early in the year. If you live in the northern half of the continental United States, you don't know how much shooting you can do in the winter to get ready for that, and it's really foolish timing, frankly.
Mhm.
They moved it back a month and thought that was some big a big helper, but it really isn't. In addition, they've raised the price from $100 a gun to $125 a gun. For those of you that don't shoot seal challenge, people generally shoot multiple divisions. People will shoot at a match like that, generally 4, sometimes 6 divisions. So you're talking $500, $750, depending on how many guns you're going to shoot.
Mhm.
So very expensive. And you go down to the World Speed Shoot, which is what it's called, and you spend that much money and you don't even get a hot dog. So
And it's the same stage as you shoot at home, because there's not
yeah,
stage design isn't a thing.
it's the same 8 stages you shoot here. There's the variety in the sport's limited. We can talk about that in a second, and it's in the same spot every year, Talladega. Sorry if you live down there, but it's a nothing town. Move the match around, move it, do a 2-year contract, move it someplace else. Give people some variety. So it's really, to me, I'll get crap for this, but I don't care. It's really the Southeast Conference, Steel Challenge is what it is.
Mhm.
It's very big down in the Southeast, and they're happy to keep it there. It's
Yeah.
my on the match anyway.
Now, well, interesting thing about Steel Challenge, again, talking about the Cornhusker match last year being an RO, I knew maybe 5% of the people there. There were so many people. Maybe I'd heard names, but never seen the majority of these people before in my life. It was
I would
interesting
say
because it was a way
yeah,
different crowd.
it's the vast majority of people that shoot Steel Challenge do not shoot USPSA and vice versa. I think our club probably has more people that do shoot both, at least at the local level they do. I'd say we're probably 25% of people that probably shoot both sports, but in a regional area or nationwide, it's very small, that cross between them. So they're 2 different sports. They use a similar rule set, obviously, for the make ready and
Mhm.
all that sort of thing. And the divisions, there's a few more divisions. There's probably too many divisions, frankly. Especially when I saw in the next BOD meeting, they're looking at, should limited optics be a steel challenge division? It's like, we don't need 14. Come on.
That you could be a member of the 14 club or whatever.
Oh my gosh. Going back to the rule book, the hit factor rule book for the Cornhusker hit factor championship, there's 6 divisions. We could, and I won't get into them now unless you want to, but the
It's up to
reason I'm
you.
bringing it up when we're talking about steel challenge is 2 of them are not in there. Single stack is not in there, and revolver is not in there.
Mhm.
If your club wants to use the hit factor rule book and you got a bunch of revolver shooters, make up the rules for the division and knock yourself out. Single stack, same thing. But for our match, single stack, you can shoot enhanced irons, which is the equivalent of limited, and revolver, you can shoot open or you can shoot an I-core match. That's my opinion.
Yep. And the thing I liked about the hit factor rulebook are the capacities closely mirror IPSC.
Yeah, we should maybe talk about that before we get back into the steel
Yeah,
challenge.
yeah.
Is so there's 6 division. There's open, which is what you think it is, right?
Anything
It's
goes.
pretty unrestrictive, and you can shoot major or minor, declare open, major or minor. I did have to put a clause in there that said a pistol braced PCC is not a pistol, because somebody was already going to try to do that. And then we'll start. Let's go down the other way. Practical irons, which is the equivalent of production, but you can use a 140 round mag. It's just 15 rounds in the mag. The big change is the next one, which is practical optics. Practical optics is the same thing as practical irons, just with a red dot on it. It's 15 rounds, no magwell, minor shooting. To me, what carry optics should have been, it's
Is
grown, but
this?
for the hit factor match, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be
It's
15 rounds.
an out of the box pistol, more or less, with a red dot on it and 15 round magazines.
Yeah. Now, what we didn't do is we didn't change the rules saying you had to use your stock mags. A lot of people have invested money in their
Mhm.
arsenal with 141 millimeter mags and base pads. We didn't put in there that you couldn't do that, but we're trying to at least differentiate between what practical optics is, and in the hit factor rule set, what enhanced optic is.
Mhm.
So enhanced optics would be kind of a combination of limited optics and a fully stacked 141 millimeter mag carry optics gun.
Mhm.
So if that's what you want to shoot, that's enhanced optics. Enhanced irons is equivalent to limited,
Yeah.
major or minor. So those are the only 2 divisions, and then PCC, you can shoot PCC. So those are the 6 divisions. But It's simple. It's six divisions, and I guess you're going to have some people shooting their shadow twos that say they're up against a single action only gun. Well, that's really only for your first trigger pull guys, so I don't feel too sorry for you.
What about we've had conversation about this, weighing the guns. What can my gun weigh, Todd? How much brass, steel, metal, aluminum can I stack on my gun?
I did not get into that in the rule book. I could. That implies that I'm going to weigh it. And traditionally, at least at our major match, we have not done chrono, and we have not weighed or got the box out to check guns. That doesn't mean we don't reserve the right to, because in the rule book we do reserve the right to do it. But we did not. The primary reason we didn't want to do it is we didn't want to take people's optionality away from the investment in their current gun to what division they might want to shoot. If the situation doesn't resolve itself in the meantime, or in short term, I should say, in the short term, we would maybe look at adding those stipulations in there if it was going to be a long-term rule book that we would use.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
That's my stance.
It's all very reasonable. And the other thing I like is, well, Todd, I've possibly either called or texted you before with, I won't say an emotional response, but a more aggressive response or a more aggressive way to resolve things. And you're pretty good about being the voice of reason, good at looking at the big picture, keeping a level head and thinking about things logistically. So
I appreciate it. I try to. You
I,
can't be hot about everything all the time, at least.
correct. Well,
get old real quick.
if you yell about everything all the time, people stop listening to you.
Yes.
If everything's always an emergency, nothing is an emergency.
Yeah. So I mean, you got to work on what you can impact too. Keep in mind, where can you actually drive change, and where should your energy be? So, keep talking about the hit factor thing a second. We touched on it earlier in the conversation, but and I don't know if I really laid it out as well in the thought process, but running a hit factor match using your own rule set, not violating any rule. We can run any hit factor points per second match we want to. We can use any targets you want to. People talk about using USPSA targets or not. I suppose somewhere in the back end from the distributor, USPSA is getting a little money. Use IPSC targets. Use PCSL targets. It's very clearly spelled out. If you use PCSL targets, that Max is designed how you would score them in a match like this. But using the USPSA rules and not paying the fee, our club stance has been that, number one, you're going to pay that fee if the situation is ever remedied. The argument to that side is that we could get to the end of the year and not hit our minimum number of matches and put ourselves at risk for not being a sanctioned club again. If it goes that long, which it may, and it's determined that Eastern Nebraska Practical Shooters would not be a sanctioned club, I think we know what we'll do at that point. We'll just continue to expand the rule book and continue to have monthly matches and continue to shoot the hit factor championship.
What about
let's get off our back?
You can choose to answer this. You almost paint a little bit of a target on your back by going against the flow, doing the hit factor thing. Hopefully you're gonna, well, as well as I do, there's gonna be bylaw citing people that are gonna look for a reason for you to make a mistake. Whether internally at our club, from other clubs, from the internet, from the board, whatever. What would you say to someone, not trying to talk them one way or the other? People worry about retaliation and that kind of stuff. Does that cross your mind, or what are your thoughts?
No, not at all. I mean, the hit factor rulebook, what does USPSA have to do with it? Not a thing. They didn't trademark it. If they tried, they tried. If they thought they were going to be successful, they weren't going to anyway. We can do whatever we want. If they wouldn't sanction us next year, I guess we wouldn't have a classifier match in May. So I don't know how you could really retaliate against us. I guess you could retaliate against the steel challenge portion of our club. At that point, I guess you'd be at full-on war if that was the stance that the board would take.
I should have mentioned.
We would just run outlaw matches then too, and I'll be fine.
I should have mentioned this part. Your match number for Steel Challenge was pretty noteworthy last year also.
We had the third most registrations / competitors in the country last year.
which is pretty noteworthy considering.
102 registrations. So I guess if you were going to come after the USPSA part of our club at the detriment of losing your steel challenge fees
Your
coming in, I
third
think that
biggest club.
would be a silly decision. Not that I doesn't mean
Not
it wouldn't be done, but it would be silly, in
not
my
that
opinion.
not that silly decisions haven't been made.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
anyway, that's pretty noteworthy that you built such a successful steel challenge club.
yeah, it's not just me. It's I mean, steel challenge has been a pretty popular sport in our club for when we joined, very popular, and still continues to be. I think it really took off about 5 years ago. Don Rush, who you know,
Hmm.
and some of you might know, and if you don't, he's probably RO'd you at a national match over the last few years.
Probably more
Great
than once.
guy. Retired. He started putting on Thursday night matches, real quick match on Thursday nights. He does about 30 of them a year. I can't tell you how many new people that's brought in, especially after COVID. People are looking again. People have bought firearms and want to start competing with them. So that's all Don. Don is that's a lot of work putting on that many matches, loading
Hmm.
those scores every week, getting there in time, opening the range. So Don deserves all the credit for that.
Ah, it's been a good group effort
Yes, it is. Yes.
for sure. Well, what qualifications do you think are important to being a good match director? I have my own 2 cents. I mean, let's be real, Todd, from a business standpoint, for managing people or supplies, logistics, you are overqualified for this job. I mean,
Oh, I
being
don't know
real,
about that.
I would say so. But
I
what
think
qualities do you think are important?
I think you just have to be organized. You got to have your list of what you're doing every week or whatever you put on a match is. You got to know who you can count on to either create a stage or making sure that targets are being ordered. And we have all that. A lot of that existed. We have people that making sure we have supplies. Making sure in the steel challenge point of view, actually it's both. It's not just steel challenge. And you do this all the time with people. I've seen you do it in your squads is making sure that people are getting an opportunity to take that timer and to take that nook. We have a lot of people that I would trust to be an RO that haven't taken the class.
Hmm.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing that anybody could do at their club is getting people engaged, use the timer. If you screw up, it's okay. We'll teach you for next time. Because the more people that can help you get through a match, they can help you then get through a major match. And the goal is if you can put on a major match without having to have outside help, and we still have about 3 or 4 that we ask for just because we have so many stages to cover. I think that's a good credit to your club.
Hmm.
But I think from putting on a match, you just need your list. What things do you need? You got to prioritize which ones do you work on first. For the Cornhusker match, we're pretty close to having the RO set done. I'd say we got about half the stages in that looks like we can work with. About 5 or 6 of them. We need probably 4 or 5 more to tweak. You got to have somebody chasing the sponsors. You're doing that on behalf of our club and getting the sponsors that it's not just about prizes. I think I don't look at it that way. Our steel challenge matches example is TACOM 3G. He's out of Minneapolis, and I know that through his donations that people have started buying parts from him, and that's really what you want. You want people to look at a sponsor that is not only investing in the sport um, as a whole and trying to encourage more people get in. And obviously, they want to sell more product. That's why they're there. And you're hoping that you can create that kind of environment. So sponsorship's
Hmm.
important. And then putting good stages on the ground. That's the difference between USPSA matches and steel challenge matches or hit factor matches, right? The stages are a big component. What style are you going to try to put on? Last year, the Cornhusker Classic was a lot of open targets. There wasn't a lot of cover. You had to be positional shooting, but you could fire away when you got to those spots. This year, you and I have talked about we want to try to lower those hit factors a bit, put a little more cover on there, maybe some more activators, try to slow people down a little bit, get them the opportunity to get in trouble without getting stupid.
Hmm.
So you want to try to put on where the match maybe has a little bit of a flair to it or at least a
Hmm.
style to it. And I think if you do that, it's good. Stats are important. You got to make sure at least the major matches. We've relied on Andrew Smithson from Ankeny to come over, and he's great. Stephen Tomlinson last year helped out. He's deployed on the guard this year, but we have another guy coming from over from Steel Challenge that's going to help sync those nooks throughout the day and make sure we have live scoring. So, getting those stacks, make sure those nooks are working right. Because in our Cornhusker Steel Challenge last year, you were there. Michelle and Dave Cooper Ryder had a hell of a time, and we finally found the nook of death. And
Someone decided to
my
start.
Instagram, you can see somebody hitting it with a sledgehammer, but we
Yeah.
found it.
Yeah, and we had somebody helping you that wasn't approved stats, I think, also, which was part of the problem.
Yeah, we think somebody might have made a mistake, but I think we can foolproof that in the future. Luckily, I don't think the competitors noticed. I think one competitor noticed the scores didn't appear to be right, but by the end of the match, they were all verified and good. It just put a lot on the back of the stats person. So you just got to make sure you have those key people that are trained and comfortable to deal with the stress of when an issue occurs. And if you do that, you'll probably be fine.
Yeah, and I've noticed you're pretty comfortable not knowing every single piece of what goes on at the range and every single job and every single in and out. You're just pretty good at kind of my 2 cents watching. You're good at appointing people or relying on the right people that you could trust, I think is the way
I
you said
mean,
it.
our Mr. Fix It, Rich, who's been doing it for years. I mean, in every club has one of those guys. You don't realize those little things that are being done all day to, bringing a board to the stage or, getting extra targets there or paint, whatever is anticipating that they're going to have short to keep that match going. So there's so much work being done with a good crew that, again, hopefully the competitors, you don't really want them to see it. You
Mhm.
just want it to go well. And if you can get through the match with a handful of flubs, and as long as they don't notice them, you've done a good job.
Yeah. Another thing, just an observation I've noticed between you and even sometimes the previous management, I think by well, at least my 2 cents observing, you delegating things out, it seems like it makes less stress for you. And I think that'll make you, my 2 cents, last longer before you burn out. I've seen sometimes people kind of put the weight of the world on their back, and then I just see it taking a toll on them. And so I feel like the way you manage things makes it more sustainable. Maybe you disagree.
That's nice for you to say. I think you use the resources that you have, and we have a lot of good resources to be pulled upon. I would tell you what, I mean, you were there helping last year. I I I don't remember being involved in one, but a range clean out day. We built a bunch of walls. Tom Engel, leading that crew, getting all those new walls built and stuff. That was huge. Throwing
Mhm.
a bunch of that old steel, using some money from the major matches as income to buy primarily new steel and getting that done. So we knew we had good equipment for the match and the locals that have occurred afterwards.
Mhm.
And it was great. And we did the same thing for the other shed, So we had 2 work days, and pardon me, but if you haven't done one of those at your clubs, you should do one because first of all, third of your stuff's probably junk. Throw it away.
Well, yeah,
Um,
spring clean. Well, we have like, oh, that's that steel that's broke, that's missing the bolt, or it's missing this, or whatever. It's like one of those someday projects that's been sitting there for 3 years.
yeah,
It's like just get rid of it.
I think that day probably it was just impactful to anything for the Cornhusker match last year because we knew we had good equipment. Rod Stewart made us a bunch of new great steel,
Hmm.
and all of our matches, pro-am matches, all of our locals have been better since then, since we did that. So we probably need to do that every couple of years, and not be afraid to throw stuff away when it breaks. Just get rid of it.
Yeah.
So
No,
use the resources you have. Get more
100%.
people involved. Get them to work.
Because otherwise, I mean, like I said, I guess to reiterate, I just hate it when I see like you see the one person that does everything. And you're like,
Yes.
yeah, you're not going to keep doing that for years. Like you get 1 year out of that person or 2 years, and then they start feeling guilty because they're like, well, I don't want to make somebody else do it. And then the next thing you know, they're just done shooting altogether. I've
Yeah,
seen
it's
that happen
unfortunate.
anyway.
Yeah, you got to give those people a break and give them some help. I mean, we have a small group of people in our club that do a lot of work,
Mhm.
and I think in the last couple of years, hopefully they feel that it's not all on their shoulders and it's not intended to be. And the more people we can get to help out, the better it is for our club and matches and all the competitors that come to our club.
Yeah, 100%. Well, this has been good. I think this made it through my list of things I wanted to interrogate you about. Anything else you wanted to discuss that I didn't bring up?
Uh, I don't think so. I mean, we could dive into Steel Challenge a little more if you wanted to.
Yeah. Do you have anything
Uh,
else you want to talk about
we kind of
specifically?
went back on it. I think the only other things for those people that are interested in it is number one, if you're looking at getting into hit factor style shooting, if you've never done one before, if your club does have a Steel Challenge or something like it, do a couple of those first. It's a good icebreaker, in my opinion, to get in.
Hmm.
We tell people at our club to say, hey, do a Steel Challenge first, get used to the rule set, the make ready commands. I think it's a good stepping stone for you if you're looking to go to USPSA or hit factor shooting. So number one, do that. Number two, the problems I have with Steel Challenge that you alluded to earlier, there's 8 stages. You could always run um, outlaw if you wanted to, but the large majority of the competitors in Steel Challenge like the fact that every stage is a classifier. That's what they're chasing. It's more like track and field, right? If I run the 100-meter dash every week at a track meet, I know if I'm getting faster or not, and they enjoy that. I would like to see more variety in stages. I know it's been loosely talked about and the Steel Challenge Committee. I'd like to see it get to the point where maybe there's 15, 20 stages, and then a couple weeks before a major match where they announce the 8 stages, if you will, that are going to be used. I think it would make the
Sure.
sport a little more interesting and not so repetitive. So that's my challenge, and I think there's too many divisions. When you look at Steel Challenge, even production doesn't serve a purpose. I mean, production is now 15 rounds, and limited, you're not running around. I mean, you could frankly at this point just have iron-sighted center fire and call it a division. I don't know what, there's no power factor in steel. You can game the gun, you can shoot
Hmm.
100 power factor stuff. I've done it. So when they look at the board of directors meeting, we're saying added limited optics as a division. I don't understand it. Frankly, shoot open, you know,
Hmm.
um, or I just don't get the adding divisions. Having 14 divisions, and there's people that wanted to have revolver rimfire. I mean, how many divisions do you want here? There's divisions for everything you have. We don't have to create a division for every unique weapon that somebody has.
Yes.
Those are the two things that I would want them to be careful with. I'd like to see expanded stages, and I'd like to see the divisions looked at from a usage point of view, like PCC irons. I mean, I shoot it because it's a division, but if they got rid of it tomorrow, it really wouldn't bother me because it's kind of a silly division, actually.
You're lethal at it though.
Yeah, I'm not bad at it, but I'm fine giving it up.
Yeah.
So
What do what carryover do you see between I mean, all right, you're a 4-gun GM and Steel Challenge. How much do you feel like that carries over to your USPSA game or back and forth?
not much. I'm not shooting the same division, number one, so I'm not shooting the same gun. So for me, it doesn't do much. I I've focused on Steel Challenge, at least from a competition point of view.
Hmm.
Bell and I have. You still have the same basic concepts of shooting, though: grip, sight picture, transitioning from targets. So I think somebody that's even shooting hit factor style shooting would benefit from going to an occasional Steel Challenge to work on their draw, to work on their grip, to work on their transitions. You're just not running around. You know,
Hmm.
that's the difference. So they're a different sport, but shooting is shooting. And I think anytime you can get out, and if you want to test what you've been practicing at a steel target or a paper target, I think both of them are good for you. And you should do, if your schedule allows it, you should do it. So I think it's translatable a little bit, but the sports are inherently different because of what they're testing.
Hmm. Well, even for me as being a USPSA guy that, like I said, before this past the Cornhusker match, I don't know when I shot all the stages. It was really fun because it was just a test to see if I can do as well as I think I can.
Hey, you
So
did well.
I did okay, but I
I was
never shot.
impressed.
I hadn't shot some of those stages before. I didn't know the orders. Like, Todd, what's the smart order to do this? I was thinking about this. And a couple of them, even on the Cornhusker, the championship match, I changed my order during the make ready because I was just dry rehearsing. I'm like, nope, don't like it. Nope, don't like it. Yep, that's the one. Like, especially I think Smoke and Hope, I changed that during my make ready, just feeling how the gun tracked around and like what my eyes are doing. So anyway, it was a fun just exercise for me. Maybe I don't do it every month, but a handful of times a year. I think it was fun.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing for people to be involved in. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to surrender draw anything, but if you're working on your draw, you'll never get to draw as many times as you will in a steel challenge match. So you're
This is
going to get
true.
about 30 beeps that day, not 6. So
Yeah.
and then transitioning the targets, and it's shockingly easy to miss the steel on
Hmm.
smoke scope, even as close as they are.
Yes.
Trying to turn it around like a drag race.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people just shoot like towards steel and not really at it sometimes, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's what happens when you want to go fast.
so I guess parts of it are translatable, but it
Mhm.
it is its essence, I guess it is. But I think they're different sports enough, and I think you can enjoy both. It depends what you like.
Yeah.
You know, steel challenge is more affordable.
Hmm.
If you just want to shoot a 22, you know, you don't need a holster. You need a 22 pistol or rifle. You start at the low ready. Ammo's cheap. And so if you're looking to get into competition shooting and you want to get into it at a much more reduced cost, that's probably a good way to start. You know, just buy a Ruger Mark IV or a Buck Mark or something like that, and a bunch of mags and some 22 ammo, and you're good to go.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Yep.
Well, this was good. I appreciate you letting me interrogate you and sit down and talk a little bit crazy.
This is my first podcast, so I don't know. I'm surprised that Joel's the one that popped me.
No, there'll be more. How do you want people to get a hold of you? If people want to talk about, I mean, you'll get questions, match director, match management, hit factor, how we do Cornhusker, I mean, whatever. How would you want to be contacted?
Instagram's Todd Woitzel. Facebook, I suppose I don't really like Facebook.
Nobody likes Boomer Book.
You could email me, toddweitzel@gmail.com.
Cool.
If you want to talk about anything, I'd be happy to.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you taking the time. And training group members, if you have questions, follow-up stuff you want me to ask Todd or have him back on, drop them below in the comments and we'll make it happen.
Pleasure being here.
I appreciate it, man.